I'm Jodie, a relationship and sex therapist based in Southern California, and today we're continuing the Love Island Reaction Series, Season 8, Episode 31. At the end of the last episode, we saw a lot of the couples starting to have, some conversations. They're trying to heal. They're trying to talk about the deeper issues. We had Dylan and Kenzie. Dylan was really trying to be heard about just him being fearful about some of these patterns that Kenzie has exhibited and, just choosing a person, kind of seeming to keep things open. We had Melanie and Sincere repairing their relationship, and Sincere kind of being on the right track of making amends for some of the things he's done. And then we had Zach and Kata, who decided to be exclusively dating and wanted to wait to become more official boyfriend and girlfriend after the show, after kind of just seeing what things look like there. But we kind of pick up a little bit with the Dylan and Kenzie conversation. I feel like they were eventually able to get to a little bit of a better place with this conversation, which was good. But again, I think there's also a limit to what Dylan's gonna be able to get from Kenzie for a lot of these conversations. I just think that it's really hard for her to kind of sit in some of these things. And I think, one of the big themes for them is intent versus impact. And I think who Kenzie is and is trying to be all good intent. That doesn't mean the outcome or the impact is not painful for other people or something that's going to bring in insecurities or things like that into their relationship, especially when there's some overlap and things like that. This one's a little bit tricky. We had Zach and Kata where they share this information about exclusively dating with the rest of the Islanders, and people are talking about it. We definitely had some people who don't really agree. They are just hey, what's the point? I don't understand this. Why is this happening? What's going on here? Zach's kind of trying to fix it and trying to explain this to people, but it's messy. We end up getting an announcement that the Hideaway is going to be open again, and I, to be honest, was not sure who was going to get voted in. I thought maybe it was going to be Bryce and Trinity because, they're official now and they've been having a really good relationship, but they also kind of messed around a little bit on their own. So I was like, oh, maybe they won't. And so actually people ended up voting for Melanie and Sincere, which I thought they were going to be kind of up in the air. Did they deserve it? Did Sincere deserve it? So they ended up getting voted in. So I was really kind of excited to see what happens there. Melanie was like, no sex is going to happen. I'm not saying nothing's going to happen. Maybe we're going to mess around, but I'm not going to kind of cross that, we call it P and V, barrier here. There's not going to be any penetrative sex happening, but we're going to kind of make out. We're going to have maybe some types of sex, but usually people are talking about having sex or talking about penetrative sex. So Melanie kind of said that's not what's going to happen, which they did actually keep to it. Really, really good on her. I think that is something that Melanie's really trying to practice, is asserting boundaries with Sincere and not saying, here's my boundary, and then Sincere crosses them, and then Melanie kind of gives in, and those boundaries don't get respected continuously. So it was really nice to see them be able to get that and just to have some time together. There was a girls' day out, so they woke all the girls up. They had to kind of, I don't know if they had to, but they basically snuck out while everyone was sleeping, and they had to spy mission to go in and sneak in there and creep Melanie out of the Hideaway as well. And so they went out, had a great day, went to the water park, and we're just kind of bonding with each other. We did have some aspects of Melanie saying to Kenzie that Dylan needs to be more forward or not, or he needs to move forward or not. And again, I've already kind of said my piece on this in the last episode of, I don't think that's the healthiest thing. That's just not how this works, but especially coming from Melanie. I'm like, Melanie, if anyone can relate to this, it's you. Melanie is Dylan. Are you over it, Melanie, with what Sincere has done? Does it not come up for you? Then I really don't think that's fair to say that to Dylan. So it felt a little hypocritical to me, where I'm like, Melanie, you're bringing up things Sincere has done many times and adjusting how you interact with him based off of things he's done. Kenzie has basically done some of the same things, so I don't really think that's fair. Even though you're supporting your friend, say, well, Dylan just needs to move forward or not and get over it. I was like, yeah, there's some little bit of a flag kind of going up there for me. I'm like, from you, Melanie? Really? I don't think that's... It was nice. I saw some male-female friendships in this episode, which were really cute. And just kind of seeing them get along really well, I think, and be able to talk to each other. I always think that's really good. I think there's always a question of can men and women be friends? I definitely think that they can, but again, I think this is one of the caveats, right? Are both of these people attracted to the opposite sex? because obviously, you know, this would be a little bit different if they weren't. But whenever there's that attraction, of course there's always a possibility. There's a possibility for most things, but it's more in how you interact with each other on like whether these things become risky or not. I know like one that comes up a lot is like, oh, we're like texting or sending things back in like the middle of the night. Yeah, maybe that sometimes we're, you know, or after drinking or things like that, and just noticing like how we're interacting. But again, I mean, I loved kind of seeing some of the male-female friendships on here and how they're kind of able to be there for each other. I really kind of appreciated that. We didn't talk about Casey and Titi in the last episode, but Titi did share that Casey would actually be the first person that she brought home. And I think she said also that it was actually her first real boyfriend, like more official boyfriend. Like I'm sure she's kind of dated a little bit, but like this is more like her first like legitimate possible relationship and the first person that she's ever brought home. That was kind of really wholesome to hear that component. Casey was talking about commitment and acknowledged that he avoids full commitment usually, but like acknowledging that he wants to date Titi. And I really loved seeing that because especially, you know, episodes ago, right, we had all this stuff around Casey and like questioning like, ooh, some of his behavior he's done and he's really kind of seems like a jerk. And I loved seeing this because you're seeing that progress, right? This is what progress looks like. One, you're able to have insight into your past behaviors. This is what I tend to do, right? This is my attachment style. So from this, we know Casey tends to be a little bit more avoidant. He says closeness, oh, I want that, but I'm always gonna kind of keep one foot out the door. That is more of an avoidant attachment style. And so he's protecting himself from not fully committing to things. Always kind of leaving options open or being non-committal or whatever that looks like. There's a lot of different ways in which this looks. But being able to acknowledge that that's the case, right? The insight, and then doing things to change it. Doesn't mean he needs to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That's not always the goal. But to notice this is scary, but I'm gonna try to do it anyway because it's what I want and it's something I need to work towards. So I loved seeing that. So basically Casey is like, I am going to basically ask Titi out officially. He planned this whole scavenger hunt thing while the girls were out. Like that was really cute, and he involved all the other guys. So they all kind of had a leg. You know, they took photos in the photo booth to kind of like try to use as hints. And then each guy was like the guide for each leg until eventually they led Titi to the dock and Casey came out. And it was this really beautiful moment. Loved that. Of course, Titi said yes. So we have another official couple in the villa and loving seeing them. So now we're getting to the end. I mentioned this before, but you know, Kenzie kind of came back and kind of started having better conversation with Dylan and kind of circled back, which I think is very important. I think circling back and being able to finish conversations and not have them just be like open wounds in your relationship is really important. And then, yeah, we basically end the episode with saying, hey, America's gonna vote for their 4 favorite couples. And what's that gonna mean? We know that we are getting to the end of the season and, you know, we've got to start having our final couples that are gonna be voted for to win. And so, you know, we got a little bit of prediction that that's coming up and we're going to see where it goes from there.